Hola, hola mi gente, bienvenidos a mi canal otra vez y a la parte 2 de la discusión del panel. Vamos.
But yeah, thank you so much. I felt all of that. Thanks, Nancita. So Maurice, last but certainly not least, ready? Good. So, don't laugh at my question, okay? Do you feel like, because of artists like Justin Bieber, sorry if you don't consider him R&B, The Weeknd, Drake, do you think they have given Canadian singers, specifically R&B singers, an edge in the music world?
A little bit. I think there's a little bit of a mystique around being a Canadian artist. I know there's been a lot of rooms that I've been in where, you know, you say you're Canadian and people's eyes light up a little bit. If not for anything, maybe it's just the kind of stereotypes around Canadians in general being like these friendly, nice and welcoming people. So, you know, I found that to be maybe not an overt advantage, but it definitely has let me kind of connect with people in a deeper way. They'd be more open to be my friend, thinking that I'm gonna be a nice person. I don't know. But, you know, I think the real advantage that we get as Canadian artists, I would say one of the biggest underutilized tools for Canadian artists and producers is, you know, grants and funding that is available to us, you know, whether it's Factor, Star Maker Fund. There's tons of funding opportunities for Canadian artists, and me personally, I've used that to kind of build my career. And I know so many artists that simply just don't take advantage or don't know that it even exists. And it's from every level, from, you know, the grassroots, just starting out artists, all the way to fully developed artists, like The Weeknd uses Factor grants, you know? So these are things that I think is definitely an advantage, because in the US, you know, that's something artists always struggle with funding. I think obviously here too, but not because it's not available, just because people simply maybe don't know or they're not taking advantage of it. So I don't think there's an overt advantage to being Canadian, but there's definitely a lot of tools and resources that we have here that I think other places don't have, and we should be making the most out of it, for sure.
I love that answer. So we have 7 minutes. I just actually have one more question before we throw it out to the audience. And this is gonna be for everyone, so anyone can just raise up their hand or whatever, speak up. We're adults. 1 second. Okay. You know, I'm a social justice warrior, so I had to ask this question. Does social justice play a role in you evoking the artist in you? I need to hear part 2 of your part 1.
Okay. I'll take the peer pressure. Girl, look, I'm an immigrant. I'm queer, I'm trans, I'm from Latin America. It's like, I don't exist without social justice. I can't breathe without social justice. And so, yeah, I must say though that with all the things that I saw growing up, especially, you know, I'm from a family of, you know, a generation of women of color, and each one just wanted the next one to have a little bit better, right? It's like, I just want you to be able to choose more. I think being an immigrant, it's like, I have this very weird image that like, when you become an immigrant, the first night you sleep, and then somehow you have some sort of spiritual surgery, or like you put on new contacts, and just like everything you see is completely different. Like you can't, I don't know, that's to me, like I see everything so differently. So it's definitely very specific, the way I approach art, and the way I create art, and the way I think art, and the way of all of that, after being an immigrant, and how that associates with social justice, and how that associates with, you know, everything that follows, you know, racism, sexism, homophobia, like all of ableism, like all of that. So, yeah, it has always been there, but I must say that being an immigrant, it's been like just triple that awareness to me.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have anything to follow up with that? Before I go into the next question? You guys? Oh, okay. Okay. So this is actually a more relevant question. How much has technology benefited or hindered local artists, such as like AI or social media? Has social media been a beneficial tool for local artists? Now that you don't have to leave your house, you can just do Zoom calls, you have more power, there's no middleman, you're more control, you're your own boss. So can you speak to the fact that whether or not technology has benefited your art?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever would have got into music in the way that I have if it wasn't for technology. I remember when I must have been 7 or 8 years old, my dad kind of put together this computer that was for the whole house to use. And that computer was where me and my brother downloaded music software for the first time and really started nerding out over making beats, which evolved into me developing my sound as an artist and really honing in on what I want to do. And so my whole career is pretty much predicated on having these technologies and learning how to use them early on. And I would say that that's like my edge that I may have over some other artists who maybe don't know how to use technology to the same capacity. And so they rely on other people to, they have to outsource. So I think the technology, if you're using it to all the benefits that it can provide to your career, then the sky is really the limit. Even when it comes to social media, I did a cover of a Kehlani song in 2015, and she ended up seeing it. I flew out to LA to work with her literally a week later. That would have never happened without technology. So, now that's a good friend of mine. I've been on tour with her. And so these are all things that I think technology brings to the table that otherwise you would have to take a flight and hopefully run into somebody or wait at the coffee shop that they might go to. Those days are gone. And you can really refine your craft from a technological standpoint. There's obviously, as an artist, there's the singing component or the performing aspect. Even technology can help you do that. I feel like for me, I spent countless hours studying the artists that I really admired, whether it was, Chris Brown was a big influence of mine. I probably watched every single Chris Brown video on the internet, especially in high school. And that really informed how I was, performing and taking notes from that. So I think it's just like the Rolodex of information that you have and the way that it can really enhance your artistic efforts. It's amazing. It's amazing. I have zero complaints. I know a lot of people, some people have complaints about, the oversaturation maybe. There's so many creatives. But I think that's even that question or that critique it comes from a scarcity mindset. Alain mentioned about mentorship and seeing everyone as your peers. When I look at social media, I see like thousands of people who share my values as opposed to thousands of people that are my competition. And these are people that you can collaborate with. These are people that you can reach out to. You can give them a tidbit of knowledge and maybe they reciprocate. So it's a beautiful time to be an artist. And I think technology is at the forefront of that.
I love that. Anyone else want to answer that question about technology?
I think it's really helped acting as far as auditions, because everything's done through Zoom now. Like, you record yourself and you send it, whereas back in the day you would have to drive to Toronto for a 5-minute audition. Like, man, I'm a full-time government worker. Like, what are you? Exactly. I would drive home 4 hours in tears. Like, but I think it is so amazing just that you can do Zoom interviews, also access to really good teachers. I have 2 acting coaches from New York who I would not have been able to get a hold of if it wasn't for these kind of online courses to get good quality teaching. And as far as things like comedy, improv and stand-up, if you are working on a character, you can literally start your own Instagram channel and just put your foolishness up there, and someone will resonate with it, someone will like it, and it helps you kind of with character development and that kind of stuff in your spare time. So I think social media is huge for that kind of stuff.
I like that. Maurice mentioned a thing of it's not about a lack of scarcity. It's if you know your art and your truth, there's less gatekeeping, and which is important. You can go, okay, you close the door on me, I'll open another door on the other side, So it's what I love about this era, this generation. It's going to be greatness. And the better people are, things just get better. You have to get better. You can't just be mediocre, and that's why I don't care if there's millions of people who are doing it. There's at least going to be 3 awesome people out of that million, So I like that. And did you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I feel like technology is definitely an asset. One thing to keep in mind for creatives is to make sure that you're using the technology and the technology is not using you. And and find a way to make it work for whatever you're trying to do. So, like, for example, I would always say this to whenever I met like a young musician, they would usually ask me for my Instagram, or I would ask for their Instagram, and I'm like, you're a musician, right? You have a Spotify, right? You should be asking me, like, you should be like, offering your Spotify, and I follow you, and then I become part of your monthly listeners, and that converts into, leverage for when you're trying to get signed, or I don't know how the music industry quite works, but it's gonna convert into streams at least, So it's very important for us to adapt to the technology and use it in a way that suits us. A lot of times I find this generation might feel like just posting is just good enough, just post it and just, let it do what it do. But, back in the day, you had artists, they were on the corner handing out their mixtapes and really like promoting. So I think it's really important as an artist to like put in that same kind of effort, right? So if you're gonna be promoting your art, you're gonna advertise on a regular basis, you're going to have kind of like a plan, like a marketing plan. And then in terms of AI, it can be a little bit intimidating. A lot of creatives feel like, okay, like this is gonna take our jobs, But I feel like if I'm looking at it from a positive point of view, I feel like now I have one of the greatest artists in the world as my personal, assistant, or as a personal best friend that I can bounce back ideas with and I can collaborate with. So it does change the way we work, but in many ways you can find ways to make the process of being a creative or an entrepreneur a lot easier. So, yeah.
That was super positive. My mind says like the robots are taking over. So, that was positive. Nancita.
Yeah, so I do agree with everything everybody has said. The only thing I wanted to maybe add to that is to piggyback on what Alan was saying, I find social media or technology helps you to stay updated with what is current in the market. So if you are able to stay on top of that game, then you're not gonna feel like somebody else is a competition or somebody's gonna come and take your job, for example, right? So it keeps you as well, current in the how can I say? It keeps you informed as to how the market is currently what's running, what's happening right now, and social media. I'll take TikTok for instance. I know during the pandemic, there's a lot of artists that their career took off with that platform, and you just have to maybe study it and see what works, and posting this and not listening to the social strategy gurus telling you post 5 times a day at 5 o'clock, 10. So it's just making it work for you and making it about what you want to share too, because ultimately we can all create a life online too, right? So I can post about this and that. So just making it work for what you want to put out there, and help it to reach your goals in your career, basically.
Thank you so much. That was a great answer. So that concludes our panel, but we're opening the floor for questions. Any questions? I have more if you guys don't have questions, honestly. So,
Okay, I can ask. This one is specific to Maurice, because you say you're from Nigeria. So right now, in terms of music, is changing. There's Afrobeat. How do you think the future is in terms of, back in the days, music was different. It was a lot of coming from the state, but now we see a lot of storm wavings coming from Afrobeat from Nigeria. How do you think the future is in terms of music?
Actually, statistically, music from South Africa specifically is actually the fastest growing market globally in streaming. So I think it's an exciting time for music in general, because, like you were saying, there's no gatekeeping. you know? So now we have this market that's been producing quality, great music that's culturally in its own little bubble been massive for a long time. And I think now, because technology has made that music so much more accessible, there's people in America now who are listening to Afrobeats and they might like it more than the American music. And so we're seeing the rise of that. And I think the future in general of international music, even Latin music, has been seeing a lot of shine over the last couple of years, honestly over the last decade, really. And I think Afrobeat is still growing. I think there's a lot of explosiveness that's still going on. Yeah, I think the future looks a lot more colorful in terms of the music that is reaching a major mainstream scale. I don't think you're gonna just see the Taylor Swifts and the Drakes of the world being at the top of the game. You're gonna see people that traditionally maybe wouldn't have had that loud of a voice being at the top, and I love that personally. Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks for the conversation. So, especially in modern times, that they're saying with technology, it's so easy to get online and show your work internationally. Do you ever feel, or what steps do you feel you should take to protect your work? Do you ever feel that, you know, you can spend hours on a song, put it out there, and then next thing you know, you see somebody else promoting your own song, and then you have them. So are there any measures that you take or concerns that you have about, I guess, the copyright?
Yeah, with regards to copyright, I would say make sure whenever you release any music, you should make sure it's always registered with a performing rights organization. SOCAN is kind of the main Canadian performance rights organization, but there's also ASCAP and CSAC and tons of different companies that do essentially the same thing. So once you register a song, once the copyright is registered, it's quite easy to, you know, get things removed. If someone was to take your song and upload it, I've actually personally had that to me where someone literally made a brand new name, uploaded my songs as their own and had hundreds of thousands of streams. But because my songs were copyrighted through my performing rights organization, it was easy to just send that to Spotify. Spotify removed the songs, cease and desist. It's done. It's done. We're done. But yeah, definitely registering your music. I think a lot of artists overlook that. We share our stuff, like we're excited about it on social media, but it literally takes 2 seconds to register a song. So even if you just recorded it, I would just register your music, and it protects you from a lot of stuff like that going on, because then it's he say, she say, but the copyright can't really be debated once it exists, so.
Thank you so much. I like that question. I actually have a follow-up question for that. Can you do the same thing for art? Like in Canada? For art?
For like visual art?
Visual art, any posting you post on social media, because, you know, we've seen that with TikTok, like all those American TikTokers that were like mostly young African-American women who got their dances copied by like, yeah, and stuff. So how would you protect yourself?
I don't know about each the arts, but for film, you just gotta make sure you have an entertainment lawyer and a contract package that tries to take care of all of it. And it can be actually quite a barriers, because honestly, I recently just bought a package that was a lot of money. But I think that's, which is a very similar thing, right? It's just kind of registering, you know, the name of the film, who is in it, and like getting all the details in there. So if anything is to happen, then you have a place to go back to. In the theater world, which is also a thing I do, like we have our unions that can support that as well. So like working with the unions or figuring that out, it's a thing. And a lot of entertainment lawyers or entertainment lawyer, how do you say, offices, I guess, they do free 15-minute consultations. So if you're really scared about any of that, like I would just reach out and be like, hey, I have this one question, what do you think I should do? And they're just very willing to like, okay, I'll have you a 10-minute call and kind of guide you on that. But yeah, in other arts, I don't know.
Thank you, that's a great answer. Any other questions from the audience? Go ahead.
If someone wants to take it, I don't mind.
Hi, Dina.
Hi, you're doing great. This is so enjoyable.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Sorry, sweetie. This was me in the first 5 minutes, but anyway. So I have a fun question. It's not super educational, but I think it's helpful to just kind of reflect on things like this. So, could be for anyone. as artists, we often move the goalposts every time we achieve something. We like never take the time to be like, okay, this is where I wanted to be so bad just 2 years ago. And now that I have it, I'm like, okay, well, like I'm a filmmaker. I'm like, okay, I won this award, cool. Where's the Oscar? Like, okay, enjoy this for the time being. So just out of curiosity, what is your next goal that you're looking forward to?
Every single one of you guys have to answer that. Sorry, look at the time. I'm actually curious. Okay.
Well, the thing is, my schedule can be quite tight, like busy. So sometimes it's just a matter of like taking it week by week. Okay, I'm like for example, like I have a show next week, so I'm looking forward to that show. So I'm focusing on that. Okay, I'm gonna do everything and then I'm traveling after that, and it's like okay, and then I'm looking forward to that. So you can't be, because if I start thinking about everything yearly, then I might freak out. So and also it's just like trying to remain grateful of the moments, right? Take it in, and just remember that hey, oh my God, I'm doing what I actually wanted to do. And it's funny because I did like a meme on like TikTok one time where it's like, I think it was the I forgot what that film is called, Hangover, and it's just using where it's like you kind of like change characters, and I flipped it in the sense that he's like, oh, did you die? But did you die? And I'm like, he's like, I'm so tired, and he's like, but you're doing what you love though. So I'm like, okay, yeah, true. So it's just reminding myself that sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. In terms of doing everything, because sometimes like you're self-managing. I'm currently in post-production for one of the film that's coming, and I was like also filming my last video that came out like in March, during the like December. So then all of that, and I'm just like, oh my God, what's happening? So it's just like managing all of that and just taking moments for yourself and like remembering that hey, I'm doing what I want to do, and yeah, and just day by day, week by week. That's how I do it. Thank you for your question.
Thanks, Tina.
If I don't know if anyone in the audience is familiar with Myers-Briggs personality assessment, but I'd recommend everyone take it because my whole life, early on, I kind of realized I wasn't naturally the most organized person. I didn't have everything all neatly, put together, but I knew, this overarching vision of what I wanted, but I didn't quite have like the regimen to get myself there. So I like hyper boxed my life into thinking that would, yield better results for me. And, I started waking up at 5 a.m. and doing like the crazy billionaire morning routines for years. But I couldn't help but feel like this, even amongst accomplishments that were happening, this sense of like numbness almost, like it wasn't registering for me, and I felt quite, I don't know, maybe depressed, maybe honestly. But what really changed was when I learned that I was an ENFP, and apparently ENFPs, we need lots of novelty and new experiences and new ideas. And so now my goal is actually, it's more geared towards creating that both through my actual career and just in life in general. And I've actually found my business has thrived in that versus like 80% of my time doing the things that I really don't want to do. I kind of flipped it into like an 80-20 where 80% I'm doing only what really matters to me, what I think is the most important thing for me to do for my business, for my art. And then 20% of every day is really dedicated to those like mundane things that maybe you don't really want to do, but it needs to get done. And I think that helps me kind of feel more like I'm always in this state of inspiration, and it's not even about any one goal anymore as much as it's about just this constant feeling of curiosity and excitement, and that leads me to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it's just this infinite kind of loop. But I think finding the way that loop works for you and your brain is the key, because then you're not just, maybe for your brain the goal is what keeps that cycle going. But I think having that self-awareness goes a long way to like managing that. And I think it's very individual of how it really works.
I love that. It's like you have to protect yourself. You don't want to join the 27 club. I know it's dark, but like protect yourself. Anyone else want to answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. Like SMART goals, I'm very specific, but I can't do it. Couldn't do it for 10 years. I just couldn't do it anymore. But I somehow focusing on the day to day. I realized that I'm actually on my definition of success. Not something that I thought, oh, I'll be successful when I get into this space, but like, I do have a very fulfilling life right now, and it's like I just kind of got here by focusing on just what I wanted to do next. Like it was just a lot about what do I want next, what do I need next. Some things you can't, I don't want to be here anymore, but sometimes there's that 1 year gap or 2 year gap to leave it. So it's like, it's not sunshines and rainbows, but to me it has been really just about those general goals. Like I always wanted to study abroad. I never to be doing that in Canada, Ottawa, Ontario, like that just happened that way. But I never had, Canada on my mood board. I love it here. But I never had it on a mood board, you know what I mean? And mood boards work. I'm just saying it was not that specific. But still, I was an international student and then I immigrated and now I'm here and then I'm filmmaking and a panel as a filmmaker. It's like, how did I get here? I don't know. So my goal now actually is to just have more time, do less. Anyone relates? But just have more time to do the arts that I love, which my triad now it's theater, filmmaking, visual arts. So I don't know what that looks like. It doesn't mean I'm doing it 5 films a year. It does not mean that I'm getting paid this amount of money. It doesn't. I don't have any of those things. I'm just I just want to do that full time. Tell me, universe, how that's going to look like. I'll take it. So that's kind of my approach now to answer your question to that. It's been for the last few years, and those have been great years. Just internally, it's just I want this, and you tell me how it's going to look like, right? Whatever it's in there. I'm not in America, I'm very spiritual. Whatever it's in there, you tell me. Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I love being around artists. You guys do all of that while we just enjoy your work. Sorry. I love it. I'll do my boring, mundane life, and you guys sort it all out.
Yeah, I was thinking I'm almost maybe in the phase where you guys were earlier, because I feel like I'm relatively more new to it. So I think my second film, for if you don't, there's a call sheet when you're on a television or a movie, and it's kind of rated by how featured you are in the project. So I think my second one, I had literally signed up for my agent for 4 months, and I was number 4 on the call sheet. And I was having conversations with the other actors, and they were like, oh yeah, I went to university for this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, And then I feel talking about that drive and that hunger where you're I'm here. Y'all are gonna see something. So I think now my ambition is as you were saying to your point, I don't have the basics of acting at all. I don't have the theory. I don't have that kind of stuff. So for me, it's very much learning those basics to become a better actor so that you can kind of get more roles. And I just did an audition. So Natasha Rathwell, who was in Insecure and Black Lotus, she's writing her own sitcom, and I auditioned for it, and I got all the way to what's called a chemistry read. So essentially it's you and with the cast. So that's why top 3 or something like that. So I was yes, I was so excited to get it. I didn't get it. I cried for 2 weeks straight. But to know that now I'm on that, do you know what I mean? Now American sitcoms, I'm just oh well, now it's over for everybody. But just to you have that drive and that ambition to be if someone can see me here, then that it gives you enough to kind of keep going, if that makes sense.
It's that great hockey player saying, Gretzky, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
But no, I love that story. You're famous.
Nope. Absolutely not.
I don't want to leave the stage. Maybe I'm just hogging you guys. So anyone else have any other questions before I throw up? Yes, go.
Someone didn't answer my question.
Oh wow, she called you out.
Alright, so I guess I could relate to what Maurice said. In terms of motivation and goals, I found that I often am not motivated as much by the carrot as I am by the stick. And I kind of learned that, through trial and error, and which actually kind of gave me insight on how I could achieve success in the future. So I realized that when something bad's gonna happen, that's when I kick into Superman mode, and I start, pulling rabbits out of the hat. So I realized, if I put myself in these situations on purpose, I can get to where I want to go and where I want to be. So I think that's one of the reasons why I achieve success in competitions, because it was I knew okay, there's a whole audience of people, and I gotta show up, So I started creating these situations. I remember in, I believe, 2018, I did a series of events. It was every Thursday, it was a live painting every Thursday at a local restaurant or whatever, and that kind of forced me to create on a more consistent basis and kind of helped me get the work ready for a show that I wanted to do. I realized that I'm really good with short-term goals, but then long-term goals is it takes a while, right? So for me, my goal, a future goal of mine, is to do a solo show next year. So yeah, that's part of my process, and also to create a show that's a little bit more unique, that involves the participants to come and do work. So yeah.
Thank you for that question. I actually want to say I can't even write my name in public. I don't know how you do the live painting. Great. So, any other questions? I feel like I'm going one by one. You give us a question.
Her eyes are very demanding.
No? Do you guys want to say a final word? Oh, you actually have a question. I forced it out of you. Okay, go ahead.
So this is more for Maurice, who I'm not personally a musician, but I heard you earlier talk about what's it called? Star Maker, or what's the other one? Factor Grant, yeah. So obviously I have a lot of friends who are musicians. We're trying to break into the industry, but I feel like they're lacking resources or guidance as to where to go and how to operate. So, just briefly, how would you tell me to explain them how does that work? How should they approach it, right?
With regards to the grants, it's quite easy actually on Factor. It's a website. You go on the Factor website, and then it basically has you register a profile, and they give you a rating based on kind of where you're at right now in your career, and that determines basically how much funding that you have available to you. So as you grow in your career, you get access to even more and more resources. But I would say, just tell them to literally go on factor.ca, register for an account, get their artist profile rating, and then start applying for grants after that. Star Maker is even easier, same type of process. You don't have to have an artist profile rating or whatever, you just apply. What I would advise is, if you can, try to find a grant writer. Grant writers can really make the process a lot simpler, and they're quite easy to find on